All right. This is the first in a series of Interview with a Bubu, also known as Mom to me and Bubu to Jackson. Can you please state your full name for the record?
Bubu?
Maybe your legal name or a more appropriate name?
Sharon.
What else?
That's it. I go by Sharon.
Don't you have like 6 names?
Not anymore.
Okay, what do you go by now?
I was born Sharon Jackson. At
Okay.
the moment, I'm Sharon Tweedy.
Okay.
My alias is Bubu.
Okay. Maybe you can tell us your oldest and first memory.
Why do you have to say oldest? First memory.
I can edit some of this out if you want. Can you tell us about your first memory?
I was thinking about that, and when you said it yesterday, and I'm like, it's hard to say because there's old slides that Nana and Grandpa took, and I can remember seeing the slides and sort of having a memory about when they happened, but I'm not sure if that was actually my first memory. But there's a slide that we'll have to watch again someday. They're all upstairs, of me in your house now, in the bathroom with the door open, because I don't even think they had a door on it yet. It was newly built. So I probably was like 2.5. And I was trying on Nana's stockings. Back when they had the stockings one at a time with a garter belt.
What? Explain that to me. I don't know what that means.
Before they had pantyhose, which is all connected.
Okay.
They had nylons that you put on one leg in,
Okay.
the other leg in, and then you had a garter belt around your waist, and it snapped each leg in.
Okay. Yeah.
So I was trying those on in the bathroom.
Just for fun.
Just because I was 2.5 years old. And
Is that what they use for Christmas stockings as well?
no, they would have stretched and they were too cheap to put stuff in them.
Okay.
No, my first Christmas stocking was actually a big one that I had forever. I don't know where it is now, but it was a big one.
As big as these?
No. It's almost, though. It was a smaller version of that. But they're bigger than the ones we have today. Me and Jody had the same one.
Did they fill them up?
Yeah, but it wasn't filled up all with toys. It was like oranges and apples and no candy.
Huh.
Oranges
Pencils?
and, yeah, stuff like that, probably for school.
No presents? Just snacks? Food? Healthy snacks?
I don't remember. I'm sure there were little presents. Little dollar store. They didn't have dollar stores then, but... Or she probably made stuff. I know that she always made mittens and slippers. So every year we had mittens and slippers and hats. And she made our clothes. Well, those were like given in a... Not in the stocking, of course. In a box. Or maybe she didn't even use a box. She probably just wrapped it. And of course, me and Jody, most of the time they were like matching clothes. It's like...
She made 2 of them?
She made 2. One Jody's size and one my size.
So that's where you get that from, huh? That's why we always get the same presents, me and Jack and Steve.
Church bells. 9:30. Sunday morning. January... What's today?
8th, 9th, 10th. What is today?
7th. 8th.
That's
7th.
20.
8th.
Yeah, what did I just do? No, that's something I wanted to do.
Yeah, so she made our school clothes. We only had like 2 outfits. Or how did we get all those? We had clothes, but they weren't a lot. But I know she made our clothes like the first day of school clothes or something for Christmas. And we probably had hand-me-downs. I'm sure we probably did. I just don't remember.
Yeah, who's older than you in the family? Would you have gotten hand-me-downs from? Jody probably got all your hand-me-downs, huh?
Yeah, Delora, my cousin Delora, and Margie. But I don't... Yeah, they probably got... Yeah. Or friends, probably friends more than relatives. Because Nana was quite the social butterfly. I don't know how they had so many friends living in a small town. But,
Probably working at the Credit Union. Was she working there then,
she
or
didn't
no?
work then.
Oh.
Grandpa was the only one that worked until I was about 15 or 16. But she always Nana took in ironing. Like people would bring ironing to her, and they'd pay her to do the ironing.
Huh. Okay.
And I don't know what else she used to do, but yeah, she was always ironing.
Well, she wasn't doing much else. Maybe that's how she was social. Had nothing else to do, getting around, talking to people.
Well, I remember when it was just me and Jody at home. I don't remember doing much, but as soon as I got to school, she would take Jody and be social. Like, she'd go visit people, and they'd go to do these things with them, and it's like, Why do I have to go to school and Jody gets to go do stuff?
Wait, you got back from both? You got back from school when you did this, or?
Oh, that's when I started school in first grade.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Then I just had one kid to traipse around, so she'd go do stuff like visit friends or, I don't know what else she did. Maybe go get her ironing.
So, when was the house built? Back up. You said something about there wasn't a door on the bathroom.
They lived in Keene when I was first born.
Okay.
Actually, I think they might have lived with Grandpa Rice and Uncle Lyle when I was first born, or for a brief period of time. But they had two different apartments when I was young. One was in Keene. What the hell was that? And the other one was on Carlton Road in Swansea. I think that Carlton Road in Swansea was the first apartment or house that they rented, and the second one was in Keene. God, now I'm not going to remember the name of the street. It was by the High Street area. It was in those areas. Oh, I remember where it was. What's that street? It goes up between, if you take a left off Port Street leaving the hospital.
No.
And it's the one that goes Prospect.
Okay.
Yeah, Prospect Street. And then they built the house because Grammy and Grandpa Jackson gave Tommy and Jackie a piece of land when they got married. And I think she probably gave it to my parents as well, but they didn't start building on it until they were pregnant with Jody. Because they were living at the house when Jody was born. So I was like 2.5. Because I can remember Thomas Lee came down. That's what we used to call Thomas. Tom
and Lana? Thomas? Or
Thomas Lee.
Okay.
He came down and watched me. He was a teenager when they went to the hospital to have Jody.
Oh, okay.
So that's probably my earliest memory, is that Thomas Lee came down, and I remember being in Nana and Grandpa's bed, and he was reading me a story. Did I even have a bed back then? I must have.
Just a little blanket on the floor like a dog bed or something?
Well, we actually had good furniture because he worked at the Sprague & Carlton, so we had good furniture. He made it usually. Got it at a discount or made it, I don't know, maybe he stayed after hours and made it. I have no idea, but we always had just a twin bed, but back then it seemed huge, just a little twin bed. And they probably only had like a queen or a double. They didn't have a very big bed. And what did we have in there for furniture? Just like little end tables. And my room is where... Is there anybody in that room now?
On the back side of the house?
The one that had a connecting closet?
Oh, I turned that into the kids' room now. Yeah, I turned that closet into the connecting room into like shelves and built some shelves in there. So you can't get through it anymore. But
So that's where my bedroom was.
okay.
And Jody's was the other one. And Nana and Grandpa, of course, had Nana's room.
The big corner one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I remember that room seemed huge when I was a kid. Of course, I only had a tiny little bed in there.
Yep. Did you ever sneak out into the living room through that little doorway?
No, it wasn't open then. That only got opened later.
Oh, so
There was
a
a
closet.
wall there.
Oh.
There was a closet in the living room because the
Okay.
what's the name of that plan that built that house? There was a company that they sold plans for houses, and that's what built that. That's what they got to build the houses.
Was it just plans or was it a kit?
I don't think it was a kid. I think it was just plans, and they had to build everything because he got all the family, got Tommy and relatives to help him build it, and of course they got friends. And the whole house was built very cheaply and jerry-rigged, I'm sure, because he didn't have much money. It was just his income.
Yeah.
But he's figured it out, as you'll see as you go through the house. She's updated over the years, or she did update over the years until she got sick. Then she tried to update it herself, and I don't know how well that went.
From what I've seen, it seems pretty well built as far as the framing itself. In the basement, you can see the floor joists and things. It seems it's held up pretty well for how long is that? So it's
It
been.
was like 62 they built it.
So you were born in what, 59? So they built
It was
it.
62.
Okay.
Well,
So
Jody's
it's,
born in January, and it had been built before then, so maybe 61 they built it.
So it's like 60 years old, 61 years old.
Yep.
How did they do the foundation? Do you remember anything about that?
God, no.
Yeah.
I don't even remember. I was too little to remember it being built. I remember it being built and not finished inside. Like the bathroom wasn't finished. Like I said, the door wasn't on, and I'm sure they had to do some finishing things. The garage was just, I can remember, not the garage, the basement was just all cement. There was nothing down there because we played down there a lot as a kids. And actually, it was a garage because the corner of the road that goes to the basement.
Yeah.
That was a driveway. They used that as a driveway, and they drove into the garage.
Okay.
At one point, and I don't know if maybe they figured it got too wet down there, so they stopped doing that.
Yeah, it's still pretty wet down there. Was that well always there? Because that well is kind of like right in the way of where the driveway would be.
No, the well was up on the hill. Like if you're going out the basement door, it was up on the hill on the left.
Huh. Okay. Up towards the road more.
Yeah, and I guess it.
By the apple tree.
Yeah, right where the apple tree is. That was where the well was.
Huh. No kidding.
And it must have gone dry too many times. It was a dug well, and I remember going, not me, but they went to the brook a lot in the winter or when the well went dry to get water, to flush the toilet and to cook with and stuff.
No kidding.
So yeah, the other one was built later, much later. Maybe I wasn't even there when it was built, or maybe I was a teenager when the other well went in. Because that other well was there for years when I was a kid, because being in the country and having like one book in the whole house and no money, that's where I had my ant farm.
Oh boy.
Hey,
Like what?
I played with the ants. That was one of the things I did. I played with the ants. There was a bunch of ants there. It was like sand that was there. It wasn't a very good lawn. They didn't fix the lawn until much later, so it's just a bunch of sand around that, and a bunch of ants played there. And that was I would make little bridges and put sticks up there and make little gates and stuff for the ants.
How old were you?
I was a kid. I was like grade school.
6, 7 years old.
That's when I first did my witches stuff, because I would make like a witch's brew. Like I would find an old dish, and I'd put everything in it, and mix it up with berries and stuff. And of course, I wasn't afraid of snakes then, so I'd put a snake in there and see if it would kill it. And it never did. It always came back out.
Jeez. Oh boy, you heard it here first. Here, a question: where she started her witch's brews? That was it.
Oh my God! Well, you know where the deck is now. That you probably have seen old pictures that before that deck was there was just a big concrete set of steps.
Yeah, I kind of remember that vaguely.
Like the steps out front, the concrete ones.
Yeah.
They've been there from day one. So the steps on the other side, I think it had 3 or 4 steps going down. It was just a big chunk of concrete. They must have had a form that they made it. But there wasn't no level land. It went like right downhill from there. Out in the back, it was all uneven, all like no lawn, just dirt.
Huh.
He worked for years on making that driveway to be even a driveway, because it was just, in some of the earlier pictures, if you look on the slides, you'll see that even the driveway had a big patch of grass running through the middle of it.
I remember that, yeah. I've seen those pictures, yeah.
And there was always a big rock right there, too, right in back of where your mailbox is. I don't know what the hell they did with that big rock.
Huh.
It was not a big rock like across the street, but it was like a big chunk of rock sticking out of the ground.
Yeah.
But the big rocks that are out in the woods to the left, well, to the right if you're going into the house, all those big, huge chunks of rock.
Yeah.
It wasn't grown in then because it was newly built, so me and Jody would go down there and pretend they were stagecoaches.
Jeez.
Oh, yeah, because we had nothing else to do to play with, so we'd go down there and pretend that the big rocks were stagecoach, or, yeah, mostly stagecoach, because Grandpa was always country and western. Gunsmoke and
TV shows.
all those country and western shows, because we only got one channel. Channel
How
9.
many TVs did you have in the house?
One.
Just one?
One black and white forever that was in the little tiny black and white. One where Grandpa would have to go on the roof and change it all the time. Change the antenna.
Yeah.
Oh, but another early memory is they had a show that came on Channel 9 called The Uncle Gus Show out of Manchester, New Hampshire.
Really?
And you could put your name in. You could put your name in to visit. And we finally got accepted to go visit. So me and Jody, my cousin Mark and Delora went to the Uncle Gus Show.
Oh my God.
I was like 5 or 6. I wasn't very old. And you could put your, once you got there, there's like a little studio audience. It wasn't very big.
That you were part of?
Yep, we all sat there. But I remember, what the hell happened? My cousin Delora had chicken pox or measles or something, so she couldn't come. I think my cousin Mark came though, but she was so mad because she was sick and she couldn't go. But yeah, so you put your name in once you're there, or you raised your hand if you wanted to go up there and talk to Uncle Gus.
On TV.
On TV. So I don't know how I did it. I got up there and I sat right next to Uncle Gus. I got to talk to him, so I was on TV.
Oh my God.
I was 5 or 6 years old.
Holy cow. First star in the family, huh?
So there's just Uncle Gus, and I can't even remember. Hey, Jack, Google Uncle Gus TV show in New Hampshire. Tell me what it says. So all it was him sitting at a desk, and there's a chair beside the desk. And he would, like, show cartoons and talk to kids, like, bring kids up there to interview them. So I don't know how I got up there, if I raised my hand or if they had to fill out a form and hand it in, but I went up there. And he asked me about something. I can't remember what he asked me, but I started telling him about a camping trip that we went on. Because we did camping a lot, too, because there was nothing else to do. So Nana and Grandpa went with either friends or the family. We all went camping. Talk about primitive camping. But anyway, so I was telling him the story about how somebody was unzipping the tent, the door to the tent, and we didn't know, we thought it was a bear, it was a little kid story.
Yeah.
And they were all laughing. And then when you were done with your interview, you got to crank, there was this music box, or Jack in the Box.
Okay.
You got to crank it, and then when the Jack in the Box went up, then he would play the next cartoon.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, so that was my moment in fame. They must have that somewhere on a reel. They kept it.
Find anything, Jack?
No.
Are you looking?
Mm-hmm.
Not funny.
The Uncle Gus Show, Manchester, New Hampshire, 1960s.
I have it. What do you want me to look at?
Open it up.
What does it say?
What it says.
Does it explain what it is or anything?
No. Just says remember.
Does it have a clip? Does it have like an old, I don't know how it would even be there, but like a YouTube video or something? I don't know.
Oh yeah, we should look that up. I wonder if they have
Look it up on YouTube.
Archives. They must have archives.
Maybe they posted it on YouTube somewhere, somehow.
So yeah, that was interesting. I almost forgot about that. Good thing you made me tell it, because I probably would have forgotten for another 20 years.
What was your favorite TV show? Was that it when you were growing up, or was there others that you watched when you were younger?
Like I said, we watched pretty much the same thing. Captain Kangaroo was on every morning getting ready for school. Captain Kangaroo show, and the Uncle Gus show was on at night. It was like on at 5 o'clock at night or something. But like I said, Westerns.
Grandpa liked a lot of Westerns.
They were always on the weekends, Western movies. Like John Wayne, Bonanza. What are some other old ones? God, I can't even think now, but...
What was, remember Jeremiah Johnson?
Oh, that's when you were a kid.
Yeah, that's probably older, or newer, I guess.
Yeah. What the hell was that one called?
Or The African Queen, maybe? Was that one of the ones from your time? No?
Movie?
Yeah.
With Elizabeth Taylor?
Yeah, I seem to recall watching that with him.
I can remember that me and my cousin Debbie, who lived across the street, and Jody would sit there on weekends or school vacations and watch scary movies. Yeah, well, they weren't that scary. They kind of... We thought they were scary, though. There was one scary movie. God, I wish I could remember the name of it. Something about a head. It was a head under a glass. And some scientist was working on this head. We were all spooked out.
Oh, my God.
I think the original Alfred Hitchcock movie of Bates Motel, or whatever the name of that movie is.
Sounds familiar.
Psycho. That was back then. We watched that. That was scary. Of course, Lost in Space, the original Lost in Space. Loved that show. But it was on like at 9 o'clock at night. And Nana would never let us stay past 9 o'clock. We always had to go to bed like 8 or 8:30 or some stupid thing. Because me and Jody would sneak out around the corner of the kitchen.
Watch it while they were watching it. Sneak a peek.
Until they caught us. Or if they had a commercial break, then they would get up and get something to eat or go to the bathroom or whatever, so then we'd have to sneak back.
What did you guys do for like Halloween? What did that look like back then?
Everybody got dressed up, and everybody got dressed up at school. You had a party at school. candy. I can remember you trick or treat around town. They'd drive us. You get out and you go 3 or 4 houses. Then they drive you down the road more, go to 3 or 4 more houses. You go with your friends or your relatives. And the store was owned by Jack Hammond at the time. And he had this great big whiskey barrel full of penny candy. And he would let all the kids go in there and take a handful of candy for Halloween.
Nice.
That was a big treat. Or we thought it was at the time. Yeah, so he was the first owner of the Sullivan store. And they had a post office attached to it at the time. The post office is right there.
What kind of things did you dress up as for Halloween? Do you remember?
Stupid things, I'm sure, because it's only what Nana could make.
Yeah.
I never bought anything. Maybe a ghost or a witch. Trying to think of what was popular back then. Oh, and then one of the things we always did as we got a little bit older was decorate the bridge.
Right across from the store there?
Yeah, there was a bridge. I mean, there's a bridge there now, but it was a much bigger piece of river that was open. It was a regular bridge. It wasn't a road over it. It was just a bridge over the road. It was huge, or at least it seemed like it was huge. It had the big iron things that went over the top.
Oh, okay.
And we would take toilet paper and throw it over and keep throwing it over and decorate the bridge. That was the thing to do. And then also...
Was that considered decoration or was that vandalism?
Probably considered vandalism these days. We thought it was decoration. But also right there beside it was a swimming hole. We always used to go swimming down there. Nana never wanted me to go swimming down there, and I always did it, I'm sure, when she didn't know. Probably because it was pretty deep for us kids back then, and it had a current that ran through, but that was a place to go swimming right there.
Did you ever swim in the backyard?
In the brook?
By your house, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. When it was... Grandpa tried to make different swimming holes down there, and Tommy and him actually made one across from where Mrs. Brusso lived. Mrs. Brusso lived on the corner.
Of Old Concord Road and Heights Lane right there?
Yeah.
Okay.
She was an old lady that lived there for years, just her. And right across from her, you probably could still see it, there's those steps that go down to the water.
Yep.
And they built a little swimming hole there. We'd go down there, but of course you'd have to go with them, because that was the main road, and you couldn't cross the main road alone. Because the highway never went in until I was a teenager, maybe 13 or 14 is when that highway went in. So the road that Nana and Grandpa lived on was called Jackson Heights, because Uncle Tommy and Aunt Jackie and their 3 kids lived across the road, and way at the end of the road was Grandma and Grandpa Jackson. They had a farm up there. Oh, this is another early memory. I can remember walking up that road, and I had a stick with a bag on it. I was running away from home. I was mad at Nana for something, I'm sure. And they came up, and instead of walking, they came up with a car and picked me up. I was heading to Grammy Jackson's. I was running away to Grammy Jackson's.
How far away were you? Just up the hill there?
Yeah.
So that's where the farm was, at the top of the hill?
Yeah, where that 4 garages now?
Yeah.
That was the farm.
Drove up to a couple hundred feet up the road.
But that farm was... It was such... I loved going to that farm because it was such an old house that had... Like, even then, in the 60s, up until they sold it, it was like an original old farmhouse where you had a hand pump in the sink, no running water, I mean, except for that, and upstairs it would have the bedrooms, but in back of the bedrooms, they'd have hidden bedrooms where they used to keep slaves.
Oh, jeez.
And back stairways down, leading out. So that was kind of neat going through the old house.
Is that house still there?
The house is still there, but most of it burnt down at one point, and I think they had to rebuild it, so probably the original house isn't there anymore.
So they owned all that property at one point, that farm and all the same property.
Yeah, that's where Grandpa Jackson lived for most of his adult life. They moved there. Aunt Mary's the only one alive to tell about it now. We'll have to get her on camera sometime and have her tell the story. But they moved there from... You know where Priscilla lived?
Yeah, down the road a bit.
If you go up that hill, heading towards Nelson.
Okay, yeah.
And there's a house, the first house you come to on the right, that's where they lived for a long time.
Who lived it?
Grandma and Grandpa Jackson and their kids.
Oh, okay.
They lived there for a long time, and so they moved from there to the farmhouse. Because Grandpa Jackson was a farmer, or tried to be all his life, and That's why none of the kids ever want to be farmers, because they hated him for having a farm, because they never had nothing. They never had any money. He wasn't very good at farming.
What kind of farm was
Had
it?
like 12 kids. Just animals and produce and stuff, and he just wasn't ever good at managing money. I don't know if he gambled or drank it away, or he just never... They never had a pot to piss in, as Aunt Mary says. But they did buy that farm up there. I'm sure they bought it for next to nothing. It probably was hardly workable back then.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember that out in the back, there was a pond that we used to ice skate on every year. And that was kind of a neat thing to do as a kid, is to ice skate on the pond. I don't remember much about the animals, but...
Yeah, it doesn't seem like much of a farm up there right now, but...
No, but they built new barns, but it did have an old barn. And so that's where Grandpa was living when he met Nana. He's still living at home. And he was like 28 maybe when he met Nana. And they got married 2 years later or something. No, he was 26 when he met Nana. And they got married when he was 28.
Was he working the farm, or was he working at...
I worked at Spring Carlton's.
At that, yeah. Okay.
So I don't know how long he had worked at Spring Carlton's, but he was friends with Uncle Lyle. And Uncle Lyle brought him home, and he saw Nana, and that's how they got together, I guess. They dated.
Okay.
But another memory from Uncle Tommy's house across the road. Of course, nobody had... They have that pool up there now, but back then, they had just a big old wash tub. And that's what we all swam in as kids. We got in the wash tub.
Jeez.
When it was hot. We have old pictures of us in there, too. Debbie, me, and Jody. The boys were bigger. They probably went down to the brook, but we used to always go in there.
So who lived there? Tommy? There's another Tommy, right? Tom...
My Grandpa Jackson's, my father's brother, Tommy.
Okay.
Who died in 65 or 66 from brain cancer.
And he was married to... What was
Jackie.
Jackie. She stayed there for a long time. I remember her.
She lived there till she died.
And so how is Tom and Lana related to the group?
Tom is Tommy's son.
Okay.
Tom is the oldest of the boys. He's the one that watched me when they went to the hospital to have Jody. And then Gary, the troublemaker kid. And then Debbie.
All right.
And little did we know that the land in back of all that is where I would live for many years. But back to Mrs. Brusso's for a minute, because I wished I had bought that house when she died and they sold it. But I guess I never realized about it. But this house was an old house, too, with no indoor plumbing. She had a hand pump for the kitchen sink, had an outhouse. Even in the 60s, she still had that outhouse in the back. She had an old coal stove in the kitchen that she cooked on and heated the whole house. And it was a small house. But that's what Pam and Corey Graves bought.
That's the same house now that's there now, yeah.
When she died. But they added on to it. They fixed it. They added on to it.
It lives in pretty rough shape right now. I keep meaning to stop by and ask if they want some help with it, but...
Yeah, I don't think they have any money either to fix it up. They bought it from them. And I don't think either one of them has worked much since, or he certainly doesn't seem to have worked much since to keep it up.
Who is that? Was that the kids of Corey and...
Oh, something completely different.
Oh, okay. Oh, by the way, I met the owners of your new house the other day. I just saw some guy walking down the road.
Oh, you did? Huh?
And we stopped, because it was kind of creepy. We're like, who was this guy walking down the road?
Down your road?
In the dark, yeah, when we pulled in the other day. And so I said, hey, you still for a good walk, nice walk or something? He said, yeah, I'm having troubles at home. My brother's being a dick or something. My mom's, whatever. So he was talking. I guess he graduated in 94.
The guy that owns it?
Yeah, he was friends with Matt up the road.
Oh, that's
who I
right.
graduated with. And he was just talking about how his family owns it. They done quite a bit of work to it. And yeah, so I'd keep in touch, yeah. He apparently knew that, who you were and how the whole thing was kind of related. But yeah, so I might find out more about what he's doing up there. Anyway, we can edit that out. But
So... Yeah, but I can remember when we were young. I don't know. I think Nana just went down to Mrs. Brusso's to visit. But I can remember going down there as a kid and visiting. And she had a bunch of toys put aside for kids. And one of the toys that she had put aside for kids, they weren't real toys. Band-Aids back then came in a tin box, like a little tin box about that high and that wide.
Yeah.
That was one of the toys. It was a tin Band-Aid box that we played with. And the other things were probably like an empty spool of yarn or thread, because they came on wooden spools back then. I don't know what the hell we did with that
I was
stuff.
gonna say.
We played with it. We just thought it was fun. We sat on the floor in front of the fire and played with these toys. We thought they were toys.
Did Grandpa make you blocks like you had for us? Those little wooden blocks that had letters on them to build, and almost like pre-Lego type things.
No, I can remember some of our Christmas presents, maybe when we were really little, but as we started to get a little bit older, they would be those prefab gifts that you put together and swore all night about putting them together.
Mm-hmm.
Like one Christmas present that I think they gave to both me and Jody was the like an old cook stove. Only it was just nothing but a decorated cardboard box with some fake stove tops on it and stuff.
Yep.
That was one thing I'm sure they had to put together a little bit. And of course, we always got these dolls. There was one doll I can remember. It was called Pretty as a Picture. Jack, Google that. Pretty as a Picture doll. So I want to show your father what it looked like. But I had a friend back then named Patty Barassa, and she would come over, and we had sleepovers too as kids. Like the kids from the school would come sleep over, and how the hell do we all fit in that same bed? It was like a twin bed we always had, but we had like 3 or 4 kids would sleep over. We all slept together, boys and girls.
Wow.
But anyway, Patty was one of them, but her brother would come sometimes and sleep with all of us. But she looked just like this doll. It was weird that she looked just like this doll.
Well, she could have been the model that they used to make the doll.
She was always a pretty little girl. Came from a very dysfunctional family, we later learned. But that's a whole nother story.
Huh.
And the remnants of that family, her younger sister and her father and their families live across from the post office in town.
The current post office?
Yep.
Yeah.
Tammy Rondo, who's big in the Sullivan
Sounds familiar.
website there, she's always got like books for kids. Like she's built one of those outdoor things that you put books in, that people can come and take books, leave books.
What did you guys do for, like, I don't know, Valentine's Day and other holidays, 4th of July, things like that?
For the school or for us?
Either. Yeah, for you, I guess, mostly, but...
I don't think we did much for us, but the school, they always had Valentines, and Nana would buy a huge box of, cheapo Valentines, and have to send one to everybody in your class, because it wasn't many kids back then. There were 3 classes to a room. 3 grades to a room, 1 teacher for 3 grades.
Oh, wow.
But we had to send one to everybody, so I guess probably not just our grade, probably all 3 grades. We had to send a Valentine's to.
Was it all handwritten back then, or did they have pre-marked up ones you could just sign or something?
No, there was some chintz, the stupid little Valentines.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a whole nother story. Mrs. Harris was our first, second, and third grade teacher. And she lived right on the corner across from that bed and breakfast going down the Center Street before you get to the store. On the left is the bed and breakfast, where it used to be, and then across from there was where she lived. But she was a stout lady who always had like pancake makeup and lipstick that was bright. And she had to be seemed like she was in her 60s back then, but maybe she wasn't that old. No, I bet she was in her 50s or 60s. But she always wore a dress, because girls had to wear dresses back then. We couldn't wear pants unless we were going outside to play in the snow. Then you could put pants on, but in school you had to wear a dress. All the way up to 6th grade.
Did you have to walk to school, or had a bus?
Wait a minute, not finished the Mrs.
Okay,
Harris
sorry.
story.
Go ahead.
So she had those nylons that I was talking about earlier that you pulled up, that had a seam up the back of the leg.
Yep.
And these shoes that had like a chunky heel, so you could hear when she was coming back from the bathroom. Clunk, clunk.
It's helpful.
Clunk, 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 clunk.
So you can stop screwing around and get back to work.
She was a good teacher, but you didn't mess around with her. I can remember, if you were bad, you got stuck behind the piano. There was a piano in the room. room was, God, it was so small. It seemed big to us back then. It had rows. Okay, this row of chairs, maybe 5 or 6, was one grade. The next row of chairs, maybe 5 or 6, was another grade. My grade was the most. I think we had 10 kids in my grade.
Wow.
But
At the same Sullivan school that's up there now that it's not a school anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she laid the law down, boy. And I know my cousin Debbie went down the slide one time, and she said something about almost time to come in or whatever from recess, and my cousin Debbie stuck her tongue at her, and she saw her. She made her come inside, and she spanked her and put her behind the piano. Because they spanked kids then. I don't think I ever got spanked by her, but boy, I got yelled at a couple of times, and you never wanted to get yelled at again.
No rulers on the knuckles or anything?
Yeah, some kids got that, yeah. But the good thing about being in that classroom was if you were in first grade, you could hear second grade lessons. You could hear it when they did third grade lessons. So you kind of knew what to expect for the next year.
Oh, okay.
But they also, a smell that I'll never forget, first of all, is the glue. The brown glue that, why did we eat it back then? We did. And then the mimeograph machine, because they didn't have a copy machine, it was mimeograph.
What the heck is that?
And that smell, you can never forget that smell. It's like a copy machine, but we'll have to Google it, mimeograph. That was the
How you doing over there Googling stuff?
He's forgetting us.
I Googled it.
And what, you gotta tell us the results.
Not just doing it for your own self. What'd you find? You got it?
The doll?
Yep.
Bring it over here so I can see a picture of it. Make sure it's the right pretty as a picture doll. No, that's not it.
Oh, that's what it's called.
Give me that.
Ashton.
Pretty as a picture doll from the 1960s.
I already forgot my other question.
Oh, there was another doll I had.
This ugly thing?
Let me see. No. Pretty as a picture doll from the 1960s.
This is the 1960s.
It's not pretty as a picture.
I'll just scroll through the pictures, maybe.
Yeah.
Where's your phone?
Images.
Upstairs. Charging.
$3,000.
I know, I wish they'd kept those dolls.
Alright, well, I'll let her look at them. So
They
she
modeled one after you.
Oh my god.
No, but that's when I first started collecting trolls. Speaking of that, because I got trolls as Christmas presents, and then I loved them.
Oh, okay.
So I did trolls forever.
It did back then. I don't know.
I remember I had a Hawaiian troll. Had a hula dress on. All these subtle signs that I'd be going to Hawaii someday, but I never paid attention.
It's where these dreams started, probably. Huh?
I think it was this one.
That's the one I showed you.
Yes, this doll. A version of it. It wasn't exactly that one, but
Okay.
something like that.
It's old. Yeah, did the eyes move or anything, or what was the?
I don't think so. Where's the old Uncle Gus one?
Where's your phone? I don't know what I'm looking for.
Good God.
You're supposed to be a kid that knows how to Google stuff.
All right, it's recording.
Well, I don't know what it is.
No.
It's just
What is that? It's one ad.
oh, see? Kids in the audience.
Is that you?
No. Does he get to go up there and sit beside Uncle Gus? Can't see it very good.
Yeah, this is history. Went to work in 1944.
How are you? What do you want to talk about?
About germs.
You got a gerbil?
Yeah.
How many?
See, that's what I do.
And 2 pairs. And 1 ugly hamster.
One ugly hamster?
Yeah.
Why do you call him ugly?
Because he's ugly.
Other things we did, little games, and I don't remember. You probably don't remember, but there was a thing called boob tubes.
To this day, I go to flea markets and stuff looking for the boob tubes.
It was a little plastic tube about this tall, about big around, and you had to shake
Oh,
the marbles
yeah.
from the top down to the bottom.
Yep, we got those for Christmas.
everybody stand up. Put your hands up like this. When I count 3, I want you to yell as loud as you can. So long, everybody. Simon says so. Here we go. Ready? Take a deep breath. 1, 2, 3.
Huh. Pretty cool.
Jack found a troll.
Okay, trolls.
I don't know why Jack. I told him to look for pretty as a picture. Came back with a troll, but that reminded me that's when I first started getting trolls. My first troll that I remember was a Hawaiian troll, and I think they probably were cheap. I'm sure that's why I got them. Or that was the thing back then, trolls. And that little game that Uncle Gus showed, that thing that was a
Boob
tube. Yeah. I forgot the name of that, and I forgot even about that till I saw it. But we used to all have that. And those things that you hold like this and they knock back and forth. What the hell are those called?
Oh.
Clackers? That came later, though. I think
marbles
those,
at least a swing.
yeah. I think those are later. They may have been 70s, not so much 60s. But oh, yeah. But my Aunt Jackie, when my Uncle Tommy died in 65, I think it was 65, she remarried Pete. But before she remarried Pete, she dated several guys, and they would have swinger parties up there.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. I can remember that Nan and Grandpa didn't go up there and stay overnight or anything, obviously, because they just lived next door. But Jackie's mother, Betty, had a husband that was not the kid's father, but his name was Harold. And Harold would come down, as soon as they pulled into Jackie's house, he would come down and sit and drink with my parents. And he was always drunk. Oh my God, that guy could drink. He would wake up in the morning and come down and have drinks with my parents. And Harold was just so funny, and I don't remember him having gray hair, which is weird, because God, they had to have been 60 or 70 back then. But Harold and Betty, and they were always there at these parties. And that's when they first had a swimming pool put up there. Back in the late 60s, maybe? That was a big thing to have a swimming pool up there. Maybe they put that in later. When did they put that swimming pool in? I can remember when Grandpa Rice died. He was young. He was only like 71. And was he 71? He was fairly young because I was just a kid. I was maybe in 7th grade. And my Uncle Lyle always lived with Grandpa Rice on Pine Avenue in Keene. They had a pretty big house, and I loved that house too. I loved to go visit there. But anyway, so when Grandpa Rice died, Uncle Lyle paid Aunt Bev and my mother money to buy out their share of the house. And it probably wasn't a lot back then. It was probably like $5,000 or $7,000, but it seemed like a windfall to them.
Yeah, I bet.
So they bought, I remember they bought a brand new blue Chevelle. I think it was what that was called. And they bought a swimming pool and put it in the backyard, right where well, it's kind of not where anything is right now. It's outside of the fence and not beside your tiny house. But it's just in that general area. They had a round swimming pool. It wasn't very big, but we loved it. We thought it was like the best thing ever. Everybody would come down and swim in that thing on the weekends, all the family and relatives. And we went swimming for a lot of times. Between the camping, that's another thing we did a lot, was camping. Some early memories of us camping with the Blanchards, and there was a big, like the Blanchard twins were they Jody's age or a little younger? So I think it was them. They were younger. Then Jody, then me. Then there was a big gap until the next kid, Sandy, and then Priscilla was older by then. I don't think she ever went with us. She was a teenager. She probably stayed home. But there was always a bunch of kids. Then they always put their tents together. And they had this great big line where they hung the clothes out when you went swimming, or if they washed clothes. Then they hung them out. And I don't know how we ever got money enough to go camping. But they came to Maine. They would go camping up here in Maine. I remember that.
Like in an official campground or just in the woods anywhere?
I think it was a campground. I know a couple of times it was a campground, but I remember Grandpa had this old green Ford, I think. And you've probably seen pictures of the wooden box he built and put on top of the car. We have old pictures of that somewhere, probably in the slides. But that's where he would put all the camping gear. Like, he put all the camping gear and suitcases and all that stuff would go up there. I don't know how it ever stayed on.
Was it a car or a truck?
It was a car.
He put a wooden box on top of a car?
Built a wooden box and strapped it on there somehow.
Oh my god.
And we traveled up to Maine because I remember it was a big old river back then. What the hell is a river? And I almost remember Saco. Maybe it was Saco River. I don't know, but yeah, they love to go camping and drink and eat and fart
Play cards?
and play cards.
Did you go out fishing and hiking and boating?
No,
No.
that's pretty much what they did. Drank,
drink
and ate and fart and play cards. The kids we'd wander around the campground and run around and do all that stuff because we were kids and had all that energy, but I don't think they did too much. And then, of course, Marguerite and Wayne Wyman, way back in the early 60s when I was really young, owned that campground in Sullivan, which I don't even know if it's a campground now,
I don't think so.
on the road that goes down by Woodbury Hill.
Yeah, somewhere in there, Liam was telling me about it.
That's right, because he's what lived there.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were friends with them, and we would go there. And this is way back when I was 5. I was very young. They had a ton of kids. I always had a bunch of kids. Everybody had the kids, and then nobody watched them because the parents were drinking, and the kids all went out and did their own thing. And I was like the youngest one. Jody probably wasn't allowed to go out. She stayed with Nana probably. But I went out with the kids that were older, and Leon was probably one of them, and Mary Ann Wyman and all them, and we went walking down that road, and they took the stones from the stone wall on the side of the road, and they made a stone wall across the road.
Oh, jeez.
Just to be kids. And a car came up and almost hit it, and they saw us kids hiding in the woods, and they came out and they yelled at all of us. I can remember this.
Oh
I was
my
just a
God.
kid. I was only like 5. I didn't take part in it. I was just hanging out with the older kids. But they also had a pond there, and Wayne Wyman would plow it with this big old tractor. And I remember we used to go skating there, and then one year he plowed it, and it wasn't thick enough, and the goddamn tractor went right through, so we were all pissed that we couldn't skate that year.
Didn't care about the tractor. He
Yeah.
just didn't want. He couldn't go skating.
I don't even know how he got that tractor out, but anyway.
Jeez. Probably still there. How much snow did you guys get back then? You recall?
Seemed like a ton. Well, you can see from some of the pictures, the snow went up way higher than I was. And when Nana, before the highway went in, we would start way up at Grammy and Grandpa Jackson's house.
Yep.
And slide all the way down that road.
That sounds like fun.
Yep. Or from Jackie's driveway, because that was a lot steeper than it is now. Go down there and go all the way down to the corner.
Oh.
Or sometimes if you miss, you go down to the brook.
Did you guys have snowmobiles then, or was that later?
That was later in the 70s when I was older. We had snowmobiles, and how the hell? That probably was part of the windfall that they got from when Grandpa Rice died. Because how the hell else would they afford snowmobiles? So maybe they got them like in the... Yeah, they got them. Probably then. And I can remember I rode with Grandpa Jackson, and Jody rode with Nana. And we used to drive through the woods to the store, which it seemed like it took hours to get there when it's like a 2-minute ride. But through the woods,
Yeah.
it was hours, and they were always loaded. It's like, how the hell do we make it there in one piece? They were always drinking. Grandpa dumped me on that snowmobile I don't know how many times.
Jesus.
I don't know how we made it. And then they go down to the store, drink even more, because back then it was Witchlands that owned the store, and they were friends with Witchlands. And then go back. Yeah. That's why I'm allergic to alcohol.
Aha. That's where it started. I got you. Let's see, what else?
I'm trying to think about all the stuff that was... We used to walk the back road. When we get older, we could walk the back road because it was... Didn't seem to be a lot of traffic, even though it was the main highway. Because they put that... When Nana, oh my God. When they put the highway in, the state bought a lot of the land from Grammy and Grandpa Jackson, but they sold the house to people called Rosenthals from
The house up on the hill?
New
the
York.
Farm, the farm?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were Rosenthals, and I think Rosenthals, those particular ones had money. They bought that, and they put a little trailer on the piece of land that they owned beside Jackie's. They lived there in that little trailer.
Who did? The Rosenthal's?
No, my Grammy and Grandpa Jackson
Oh, okay.
moved from that huge house into a little tiny trailer that they put on the piece of land beside Tommy and Jackie, because Tommy and Jackie didn't own that piece of land yet. See, they only got like an acre and a half of land with for their wedding gift or whatever. So after, I guess Jackie bought that trailer and the land from them, so she acquired another couple of acres.
Yeah, how come Thompson got quite a bit more acreage than Grandma?
Tom, I think, bought that from Grammy and Grandpa too, because all that land was Grammy and Grandpa Jackson's. They had a huge land where the road went through and the slope. Well, they had to dig all through there. That was all level. It was all a great big hill, and always had apple trees up there. And I can remember Grammy Jackson used to go up there with their apron and collect apples, then go back to the house and make apple pie.
Where the highway goes through, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was just all a big hill that they had to blast through to make that road.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know how Tom and Lana must have bought that from Grammy and Grandpa too. I'm pretty sure they did. Yeah, because that was not too long after Tommy died that they sold that up there, and the state came through and started building. But they didn't. The road wasn't finished until I was like maybe 12 or 13, I don't think. But if you look at the back of your house, you see where the road used to go across the brook there.
Yeah.
It used to come right down through their driveway. I mean, the backyard. That road used to come right down through Nan and Grandpa's backyard and cross the bridge over across from Kenyon's. And then through one of the road improvements later, they made it where it goes right down where it is now.
Was that before your time?
Yeah, before Nan and Grandpa's time.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand where that even came through. So instead of Heights Lane, it was shifted over a bit? Is that what you're saying? Like down behind the house instead of in front of the house?
The road?
Yeah, because the way that the bridge goes across now is a little confusing. I don't know where it would even...
Yeah, I don't know why they went that way at one point, but...
Huh. All right. What else can you think of from that time frame? Anything else?
Well, back then, we didn't go to the dump with our rubbish. Grandpa just put it in the backyard.
Oh, jeez.
That's why you find a bunch of stuff out there in the back.
Yeah, I keep finding something that looks like a tractor or some kind of big metal something, a car
They
maybe?
always put it in the back of the land. They would take it as far back as you could and dig a hole and just dump your rubbish in that.
Jeez.
And, yeah, that's where they put their rubbish.
In a certain spot, do you remember, or was it like everywhere?
He rotated it around. I don't remember exactly, but the land was not... I mean, it's just a bunch of rocks and big boulders and uneven and swampy, and it was not a very good piece of land.
Still not great.
Over the years, they filled in and filled in and filled in and did stuff and made improvements and changed the whole garage. Like I said, when I was young, not the garage, the basement was just one huge basement. And there was a big metal pole down there that we used to like play on and swing around on.
Mm-hmm.
And the stairs that went down there, and that's all there was. The rest of it was petitioned off like it is still, with the furnace and all that stuff was over there that we weren't allowed to go play with.
But there was a garage. They said to drive the car in
And
there.
then they would drive the car in the front part. Later on, they would do that, or they did it earlier, and then they stopped doing it for whatever reason. But yeah, I can remember them using that as a garage at some point.
When did it get finished off and lived in?
Oh, that wasn't until I was older and had you two kids.
Okay.
And he finished it off because your father was in trouble, or who knows where he was. I was still married to him, and we were living with Nan and Grandpa. Instead of all living upstairs, he figured he'd make a basement apartment with that wood stove down there.
Yep.
I didn't live there too long, though. I think I lived there less than a year. And I don't think I had a car back then. Shouldn't though. Hey, that's a whole nother decade, but that's when you guys were young and probably didn't get along with Nana, and I moved out. Apartment in Keene on Oak Circle? Not Oak Circle. Oak Street, I think. And you two were just little.
All right, maybe we'll save that decade for
Yeah.
another interview. Anything else you want to share from the early, yeah, first 10 years, first decade?
I'm still at like the first 6 or 7 years
Oh, okay.
that I'm trying to cover. And we got the dog yapping in the background as a squirrel.
What's the matter?
It's a squirrel. Here, pause that and I'll let her out.
All right, we're calling it for this one. I'll be back with another episode of Interview with a Bubu next time around. Till then.
It's still